Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive! This week I continue my series talking about Exalted by starting my discussion on the setting. The Exalted setting is a bit big, and it's certainly in-depth in certain areas. So rather than trying to encompass the entire setting in just one video, I'm going to split it. This week, I'm going to talk about the realm, the main center of civilization in the world of Exalted. Next week, I will talk about the areas outside of the realm, commonly called the Threshold. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as I talk about the realm. The Scarlet Empress is at the very top of the hierarchy that is the realm. You have to start with her, because she is the one who created the entire empire in and of itself. She's the one who set up the policies to spread the realm out into creation. And the realm is pretty much the governing body of most of the world. There are rebel elements out in the wild, or out at the fringes of the wild. There are a couple kingdoms of dragon-blooded that have held out against the realm. But for the most part, the realm claims the entire world. And it does its best to try and enforce that claim. The heart of the realm is the Blessed Isle. This is the island from which the Scarlet Empress rules from. This is the area that was the capital before the usurpation, and is the very center of creation, literally. On this island is where the Empress set up her great houses. She took lovers and children, elevated them into positions of power, and gave them responsibilities. Now, I'm not going to go into each of the great houses now. That is a project for another time. But each of the great houses have their own responsibilities. Some are the Navy. Some are the heart of the Imperial Legions. Some are researchers, etc., etc. And each house has a little bit of overlap with other houses, so that there's always conflict between them. And this was done intentionally by the Empress. If there's conflict between the houses, if they can't form a specific power block, then they can't unite against her. And so she wants them always at each other's throats, always fighting for the scraps she would give them, always fighting to raise their house up and put another house down. And this is the core philosophy that the Empress put into the world. Each house, members of those houses are given satrapies out in Threshold, out in the area that's not the Blessed Isle, or that's near the outskirts of the areas that have been reclaimed by the realm. And the purpose of these satrapies is that those individual dragon-blooded and their household, try to reclaim more of the creation, to push back the wild even more. Or maybe make some of those rebel kingdoms bend knee to the realm. It doesn't always work, but of course, again, you have a satrapy from one house next to the satrapy from another house. Guess what? They're going to be competing. They're not going to be looking at building resources to go back to the realm as much as they're going to be looking at building resources to beat the house next to them or the houses on either side of them. And this is how the Scarlet Empress, until her disappearance, maintained control. But the realm is more than just the houses. It is a culture. There are a number of different schools that the Dragonbloods send their children to. These schools range from martial arts schools to magic schools to straight up martial warfare. And of course, you have manipulating all of this the Immaculate Order. The Immaculate Order is the Sidereal Exalted. It is the religion that they have kind of pushed. The philosophies that they used in the usurpation. And because of these philosophies, the Immaculate Order has maintained control over and above what the Empress really knows that they have. Because after all, they see what's coming. They know the fates of the world. So they get to give advice to make those changes so that other people get to maintain their power or gain power. And the Immaculate Order's kinda plays the realm dirty. They're basically sort of manipulating everything from the shadows. But things are not always that complicated. Let's go into some of the more day-to-day aspects of the realm, shall we? The realm is the heart of civilization. And the heart of civilization is decadent indeed. You see elaborate galas thrown for no purpose other than to hold an elaborate gala, to show off their house's wealth and prosperity, and maybe make some friends that they can use in the other houses. You have the Dragonblood themselves living in vast estates maintained by the majority of the unexalted. Slavery is a thing in the realm, though they don't call it that entirely. And you are dealing with a world that is, well, let's be honest. If you have looked at the culture of cities like Rome and Pompeii at the height of the Roman Empire, then you've got a very good idea of what the culture inside the realm is. This is carried even more so because the people who carry on this culture are essentially little gods. They have the powers that most of us would think of as relegated for divinity. And the same prophecy that the Immaculate Order used to bring about the usurpation has a lot of similarities with the world as it is now among the dragon-blooded. The Immaculate Order try to maintain order, try to keep this decadence in check, but they don't always do the best job. It is from this that you enter into a sort of interesting dichotomy from the real world perspective. You see, marriage is important for the dragon-blooded. This is how they maintain their houses. This is also how they maintain their numbers. A dragon-blooded needs to get wealth, bring them into the house. So, marriage for love is not a big thing in the realm. Marriages tend to be political affairs. Sealing alliances, sealing peaces, that sort of thing. There's also the fact that the dragon-blooded will pick pairings because they believe it's either going to be a good matching breeding, or that it's going to, at the very least, strengthen the elemental connections of a given house. This is an interesting dilemma because the dragon-blooded do have to maintain their houses. And the houses all do have a strong proclivity towards one or another of the elemental aspects. And then you have the frowned upon marriages. Marriages for love. They're legal, they do happen, but they are frowned upon. But as long as they produce children, especially exalted children, that's okay. And they also kind of have this thing that they kind of think, you shouldn't just go having children like willy-nilly. You should have a child, wait for that child to grow up and exalt, then after that 12 to 20 years have passed, then go have another child. Then after another 12 to 20 years, have another child. Like that. But of course, you have to deal with the fact that you are dealing with a decadent society. So, you are going to see a more open-minded society. Mostly because it's decadent. So, there's no greater shame attached to a same-sex marriage as there would be to any other marriage for love. Love is just shameful in and of itself, This is kind of one of those elements that's kind of gotten a little bit controversial for Exalted. Because on one hand, it's like, oh look, there's no difference in how these are treated. And then there's, on the other hand, but these are treated as part of a decadent society. A society that is, well, at its peak, and is also in decline. So, good, bad. The political side, the real world political side of it, is trying to do that delicate dance of neutrality. You know, where it could be good, it could be bad. It depends on how you look at it. And then you could look at it as the world accepting it, or the authors accepting it, or you could look at it as them speaking out subtly against it by making it something that's part of the place of the bad guys. So it really depends. But this is one of those elements where it was kind of a no-win situation, whatever they did. So, White Wolf and Onyx Path, I think, handled this portion of the world building as best they could. And that's really all I really have to say on the realm. It's a unique setup. You can see the shades of like ancient Rome and its glory. You can see the framework being laid for a fall. And you don't know what's going to happen because the Empress is missing. And that is the biggest deal of everything. You are dealing with the one person who's kept everything in check for almost 800 years, having gone missing. And this has created a power vacuum. And so, within this power vacuum, the nobles, the various Dragonblood houses, are struggling, vying for power, trying to set themselves up as the next emperor, empress, following whatever happens. Next week, I will be talking about the Threshold, which is basically everywhere that's not on the Blessed Isle and in the immediate areas around the shoreline, around the realm. So until then, I'd like you all to remember, have fun and keep gaming.